What's worthwhile? Healing mind, body, and spirit. I'm Ramsey Zimmerman. I choose peace of mind, vitality of body, and joy of spirit over stress, exhaustion, or overwhelm. Together, let's explore and pursue the many ways to build holistic health and wellness.
A state that's really cultivated through, as you said, like the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. And we've heard this, there is the spiritual connection here that is really important, because I don't believe that you can be fully joyful unless you have all three of those, including the spiritual side. And we're going to talk a little bit about how do we do that, because the world's crazy. We've got hustle culture and the political spectrum, and there's just a lot. There's so much dis-ease in the world today, especially in the United States. The stats are staggering and so sad, as is our standard American diet. And so there are a lot of things that can bog us down, drag us down.
Hey there, it's Ramsey here. That was Jamie Belz. Jamie is the Nutritional Therapy and Wellness podcast voice for the Nutritional Therapy Association, or NTA, where I'm currently getting my certification. I jumped at the chance to share the mic with Jamie in a collaboration to talk about ways to find lasting joy through practical ways of thinking, living, and eating. We talked about how it seems like people are all stressed out, exhausted, and overwhelmed, how natural whole foods keep us going throughout the day, and how stress reduction, joyful movement, and quality sleep bring us peace. This episode is a great combo of big picture, philosophical advice and practical daily suggestions. I think Jamie's got it going on, and I think you will too. Let's jump right in.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Ramsey Zimmerman with What's Worthwhile, the podcast host, meets podcast host. Me, I'm Jamie Belz, and I am the host of the Nutritional Therapy and Wellness podcast. And we had this idea, we must do a podcast together. And so here we are.
Yeah, this is like when universes collide, they just like smash into each other, and what happens afterwards, who knows?
Yes, amazingness. That's what it is. It's so I looked it up because I didn't know that this was a thing, and it is a thing. To when two podcast hosts come together for one that we're going to each publish on our own channels, it is called a crossover episode or a swapcast. And so that's what this is right here, right now.
Very cool. My first swapcast.
Thank you for co-piloting this with me. I super appreciate it. It's been a learning experience already. We won't get into that, but I would love for you to introduce yourself, please, Ramsey, so that my audience on the Nutritional Therapy and Wellness podcast will be familiar with who you are.
Yes, hello, I'm Ramsey. Started the What's Worthwhile podcast, in 2024, and just was really looking for the next thing, and was going through a period of my life where I was asking myself that question, what's worthwhile? Because there's just so many competing interests, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And started asking that question, pursued a lot of interests of my own, and really kind of came to the conclusion that what I was really interested in was all of these mind, body, spirit connections, and health and wellness in particular, and launched off into a new career direction, and got involved in the 12-month nutritional therapy practitioner program through the Nutritional Therapy Association, the NTA. And ran into this crazy lady, Jamie Belz, who is like kind of like the unofficial voice of the NTA. But Jamie, what have you got going on?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I went through the Nutritional Therapy Practitioner program in 2016, and I have a crazy path leading up to that and how I found the NTA. But I did the program. It absolutely revolutionized my life. That's not an exaggerated statement. That's why I'm back working for the NTA, because I'm like, the whole world needs to know how amazing this information is. And so I was in private practice for a couple of years, and then COVID hit and all that stuff happened. And now here I am. So I'm back. I get this incredible privilege of hosting the podcast for the NTA. And I also serve as our business development specialist. My husband and I are in Minnesota. We've got 5 kids that we're chasing all over the map all the time. And
So it's
that's
very
kind of,
quiet at your house.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Super, super quiet. Yeah. Low
Yeah.
mileage on all of our vehicles. It's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So when we were talking about what episode, like, what do we want to do? What do we want to talk about? I had just watched a clip from the movie Meet Joe Black, and there's a part in that movie where Anthony Hopkins wants his daughter to experience, what was it, Ramsey? What was the word? Delirious,
Deliriously
be
happy.
deliriously happy. And this sparked this entire conversation. And because I loved that, I'm like, yes, like just be so happy. But when we break down the definitions of the words and such, we landed on instead, rather than going with the fleeting side of happiness, really truly bringing it to being joyful and what it means to be joyful and how do we get there and then how do we maintain that status?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think of joy differently from happiness. Like I think of happiness as something that you chase and you pursue, but joyfulness, I think, is something a lot deeper and something that sticks with us. And so, happiness, you can chase after it. It's very fleeting, and sort of you do all the quick and easy kinds of things to try to get happy. But to become joyful, I think you really need to sort of do some things in life, and it speaks to what you think and how you feel, and that whole mind body spirit thing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I would have a good time unpacking.
Yes. Yes. And it is. It's the, it's a state that's really cultivated through, as you said, like the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. And we've heard this, there is the spiritual connection here that is really important because I don't believe that you can be fully joyful unless you have all 3 of those, including the spiritual side. And that's it. Since I was a little girl, we sang the got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, right? And
Yep.
this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. We got to go with that one too, because the both of those are like great theme songs for life. Is to do it that way, and we're going to talk a little bit about how do we do that because the world's crazy. We've got hustle culture and the political spectrum, and there's just a lot. There's so much dis-ease in the world today, especially in the United States. The stats are staggering and so sad, as is our standard American diet acronym seems fitting, SAD. And so there are a lot of things that can bog us down, drag us down, and really put a wet blanket over that little light. And so I think that this is a great topic to talk about. What does it mean to experience joy fully through our our foundations of wellness as kind of the source code here. Let's go there and talk
Yeah.
about what it is. How can we experience abundant joy in this life, Ramsey? So where do you want to start?
Well, why don't we start with what it isn't, or start with what we have
Hmm.
now instead of joy? Because I feel like what we have now is we're basically all stressed out and exhausted and overwhelmed and potentially lost.
Yeah.
And so you start with those things. What are you going to do with that? Because it's part of that whole, I think you mentioned already, like hustle and bustle kind of culture that we have, but that's not really where we should end up. But instead, we should be seeking things like peace and vitality and joy and purpose.
Yes.
And so there's lots of ways to do that. That's not an easy thing to get, but there are many ways that we can start to find those things, I guess, a piece at a time.
I love that. I love that the idea um of just honestly being intentional in this space, period. I feel like so many of us are so distracted and we're just crashing through life with one day after another without intentionality. It's like you wake up, your alarm goes off in the morning, and you wake up and grab your phone and potentially check email, check calendars, check whatever. And it's like we're already on the conveyor belt through to the next morning, and not a whole lot of thought goes into what happens between alarm and alarm. But if we approach life with intentionality, who am I going to be today? How am I going to show up for myself, my family, my career, for, God? I'm always like, hey, God, who help me be who you want me to be today, please.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I think that's one of the biggest things is don't get so distracted that you can't be intentional. Be intentional, live each day with purpose, and and that goes for all of it. It goes to and we'll talk about, the foundations of health as we move through this episode, because I want to hit on all of the different foundations, which, as they're taught through the Nutritional Therapy Association, our foundations of health are digestion, because we have to be digesting the food that we're eating. We're eating the healthiest diet in the world per our bio individual selves, but we're not digesting it well to where we're actually breaking it down to be able to assimilate it. That's a problem. So we need to optimize digestion. We need to focus on, as I mentioned, that nutrient dense diet. We need to be getting the right foods in for our unique bio individual selves, meaning there's no one size fits all approach to anything. Um, we need to make sure that our blood sugar regulation is on point. We need to be sleeping. We need quality sleep, not just quantity. The 8 hours of sleep per day status quo that we set for ourselves. Yet it seems like nobody's actually hitting that. But we need to be making sure that we're getting good quality sleep. We want to be reducing stress as a whole, and that's all the stressful inputs. It's the stress that you think about, like, conflicts and pressures from work and the go, 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 and financial constraints and all of that. But it's furthermore, a lot of physical stress is put on our bodies too, from the toxins in the world, the foods that we're eating, medications we're taking, lots of different stressful inputs. And so stress management is really important when we're looking at the foundations of health. And then also movement. And I will say, joyful movement, not just for this episode. I actually say that all the time because I do think that there's a big difference between moving your body with joy versus grinding through a workout because that's what you're supposed to do. So we'll kind of talk about all of these things as we move through this episode. Um, but to circle back to the intentionality, it's like you wake up in the morning, and what do you do? Well, hopefully you decided that the night before when you went to bed, right? So if I'm going to bed, I'm looking at how many hours do I have to sleep, because sleep is more important than gym time. I know that. And so as I'm going to bed, I set my alarm to get up in the morning. And when that alarm goes off, feet on the floor and you're out the door. Gotta be. Otherwise, you'll never go to the gym. If you let yourself decide first thing in the morning whether you're going to the gym or not, you will never, ever go to the gym. And I think that
No.
first thing in the morning, right out of the gate, worst time ever to be making life-changing decisions. You can't do that.
Does your alarm clock have a snooze button, or did you deactivate it? Like, did you just like rip the snooze button out of the alarm clock?
No, because I use my phone. I know I shouldn't, but I do.
Uh-huh.
I use my phone as my alarm, and I have it set at a specific time, and then I have another alarm set for 2 minutes after. So in the event that I
Oh,
even do snooze it,
built-in snooze alarm.
yeah, because what I do is I wake up and I don't look at my phone. I turn off my snooze, and as I'm kind of groggy and right there, like I start praying first thing in the morning. I'm like, all right, let's have a conversation about where we're going and what we're doing today.
Hmm. Well, that's good. And I put my phone across the room, so I have to get out of bed to turn it off. But I guess, the point is that nobody's perfect. And it's like, to say that you're gonna be that disciplined every single morning, good luck with that. But it's definitely better to make that decision the night before, because you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, God, 6 o'clock in the morning if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm not the same person the first 10, 20 seconds. I would much rather make decisions based on the person the night before who was, responsible,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, and I think the discipline that comes along with that, Ramsey, is really important. That, it's intentionality and discipline. It's like it's the same amount of work, it's the same amount of thought being put into everything. But are you doing it the day before so that I know what I'm cooking tomorrow? I know where I'm going tomorrow. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. What am I eating? And, what do I have time for as far as movement is concerned? Those types of things being decided, it's kind of like kids getting their clothes out for school the night before. It's like that, like getting up and setting your gym clothes out for the next morning is one step in the right direction to actually making it to the gym. And, so I think that like planning tomorrow today is one really great way of being able to kind of free some of those stressors. You feel good going to bed the night before because it's like I've got my day lined out ahead of me. And again, it's actually a lot easier to just figure it out one day in advance rather than flying by the seat of your pants and trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, I need to find lunch from a convenience store now because I didn't plan for this. Like we know we're going to want food. Like
That's a
let's
given, at least for
let's
me.
yeah, let's think about that in advance. Or is it a fasting day? That's fine. As long as
Yes,
there's some
true,
thought that's put into
true.
it, some discipline behind it, but intentionality is key. All right. Let's talk about the food
Yeah,
side of things.
yeah, let's talk about food side of things. Food is interesting. It seems like the message that I've been getting from all of these studies with nutrition is that we just need to go back to eating how people ate before. We started
Yes.
just industrial manufacturing of food in factories.
Yes.
It used to be factory farming. Now it's just straight up factory manufacturing. So
Hmm.
it seems like the answer in food is to eat the way that our ancestors ate and to eat whole foods in that are the least amount of processed instead of the really glitzy, shiny, food coloring, full blaze neon food that we have now. There's a great term called hyper palatability.
Hmm.
Ooh, hyper palatability. What's that? Oh, that's something that tastes amazing because it's sweet and salty and fatty, like and hot and spicy all at the same time. Did you know that's a human invention? Like basically nothing in nature tastes all of those ways at the
Hmm.
same time, but you know, that's what we manufactured in food. And oh, we'll just go ahead and do that because then people will buy more of it and eat more of it. And oh, here's a bonus. It doesn't make you full.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, that's helpful to the
Yeah.
people selling the
Yeah.
food to you.
When I was in Vegas a few years ago, I realized that there was this massive it wasn't the Bellagio. I don't know. It's one of the big, beautiful buildings right on the strip. And I looked closely. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. It was like they were doing construction, but they don't want the strip to be ugly. And, that's an eyesore to have scaffolding all the way up this big building. And so they have this massive tarp over the
Mm.
side of it that actually just looked like, I think it was the Venetian perhaps, but it just looked like the building itself. But it was this
So they
massive.
screen printed the
Yeah,
building
they
on the tarp.
literally, yes, exactly. And so it just looks like a building, but there's scaffolding behind it and everything. And I feel like that's where our food is now. It's like it looks like food,
Yeah,
but it is
maybe
not.
sort of
It is not food. It is a food facade.
food facade. Yes. And then, I mean, the other thing about food is that there's some really good food to eat that is natural and you can eat it and be really happy eating it. So, I enjoy beef. I eat lots of beef, but hey, and things like red meat, when we were younger, when I was younger, back in my day, they used to tell us that, you just need to be fat free and
Mm,
you can't eat that fat, can't have saturated fat. But of course, they didn't say anything about the mountains of sugar that were in the food. And so it's really, really what we need to be eating is basing our diets around protein and then adding healthy fats, hopefully like omega-3 fatty acids and things like that. And carbohydrates kind of as needed or as we like for our diets, but not be afraid of things like fat because it's actually not necessarily bad for you. You know,
Yeah.
like that we get all kinds of crazy health messages, and many of those are distorted. So it's good to be able to sort of sort through those things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a great rule of thumb, and it's the common sense approach. It's like eat it as close to the way you found it as nature in nature as possible, and understand that there are certain things that make food taste good. And I think it's awesome. We have taste buds because we're supposed to enjoy the flavor of food. But furthermore, we have this innate intelligence in us that helps us to know what it is that we are supposed to eat. We see it with animals. So you see an animal in nature walk up to a plant and it might sniff it, maybe taste it, and it'll either eat it or it'll move on and sniff and taste and eat something else, right? We see dogs eating grass. That's not a natural food for dogs, but they have an innate intelligence about them that shows them, like, you should eat this because you need it right now, for their digestion. So we have that same incredible innate intelligence in us, but it's just been completely bastardized by all of the chemicals in our food. We have over 10,000 industrially produced chemicals that the FDA says, too enthusiastic, thumbs up. There's nothing to see here. It's perfectly fine. But I will
Generally
say,
regarded as safe.
yeah, exactly. Ask your doctor. Oh my gosh, don't get me started. Anyway, but here's the thing. The things that naturally make food taste good, fat. Fat makes things taste good, period. Sugar, sweetness, that makes things taste good. Salt makes things taste good. Spices and seasonings make things taste good. And in nature, let's think about that. So, obviously, we should be eating fat, and animal fats are really good. We get fats from nuts and seeds, lots of different sources of fats in the world, but only eat the fats that are actually found in nature. We don't want anybody eating franken fats. Those gunk up your hormones and cells and all of that. Uh, Second, when it comes to sugar, sugar isn't found in nature in its own, like, I mean, we can do things with honey and maple syrup, but the amount, I forget what it is, but the amount of, like, what you would have to do to actually get an overload of cane sugar, like, it's crazy how much the concentrated sugars have just completely blown our taste buds out of the water as far as being able to really, like, we're not supposed to be eating sugar concentrates. With fruit, it has the fiber intact. And you talked about carbs before, but so it's like carefully selected carbs are very important. You want to make sure that if you're eating carbohydrates, they have the fiber intact.
Yeah,
And
like actual berries. Yeah,
yes.
eating actual berries.
Yep.
They're
And
sweet, they're delicious,
the
they have
last thing
fiber.
I'll mention on that is with the salt. Sodium bombs from prepackaged food, avoid that. That's what the doctors are talking about when they say avoid sodium. That's what we mean. Is like, 2,000 milligrams of sodium in one little package of something that you're gonna nuke in your microwave before you eat it. Don't do that. But when it comes to sea salt, salt is actually really important, and we need salt for our bodies. And so getting good sources of these things, they're not bad, they're great. They make food taste good. They're found in nature, and enjoy them as close to the way that they're found in nature as possible. And if you are eating something that's missing all of those things, if it's fat-free, sugar-free, low sodium, you got to think, then what is it? Because if it still tastes good after that, it's probably just a chemical storm.
Well, it gets back to that notion of chasing happiness versus finding joy in the sense
Yeah.
that, those sugary drinks might make you happy for a few seconds, but the healthy food is going to make you joyful in the long term. And, you know, let's talk a little bit about some other things too. Let's talk about like stress reduction and movement, because, we're all just dealing with stress kind of all the time. And it seems like when you have stress coming at you, sometimes you can reduce your sources of stress, but sometimes you can't because they're just part of life. So, what do you think, Jamie? So, what are some of your go-to stress reduction strategies or stress dealing with strategies?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to kind of bring in the stress reduction and the movement into this
Yeah.
response because I used to like kill it in the gym every morning. I put myself through these intense workouts and then I did CrossFit for a little bit. And I just reached a point in my life where I'm like, okay, this is no longer serving me well, or my poor adrenal glands. And so I kind of switched over to joyful movement, whether that's yoga. I love yoga now. I've better flexibility now than I've ever had before, and I'm really appreciating going to yoga classes and Pilates classes and allowing an instructor. I go to the Y. It doesn't always have to be super expensive to do that kind of stuff. It's I go to our YMCA and they have free classes, and that's what I do, and it's awesome because I show up and somebody tells me what to do, and I get to leave an hour later feeling accomplished and joyful and with, some reduced stress. Um, but I think that finding some peaceful movement, finding movement that brings you joy can be a really great stress reducer. And that can be gardening, that can be running, that can be walking, that can be getting out on the water in a canoe or on a paddleboard or, whatever. I think bringing joyful movement into your life, that's one of my favorite stress reduction techniques. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm doing a lot of running these days. I'm training for a half marathon coming
Ah.
up in a couple of
Is that bringing the stress down, or does running bring you joy, Ramsey?
running does actually bring me joy.
Uh,
The thing about running is that when you do enough of it, you get to a space in the middle where you're warmed up, and then you can just get into this really zen kind of place. And your thinking is great. You can listen to podcasts like ours. I mean, other great podcasts. And as your body is working through that. So yeah, I really love running. It's definitely a great way to do it, but you have to sort of get to that place.
all
And
right.
then you got to get rest afterwards. Like that's the other
Yeah.
thing about stress and stress reduction is working through that stuff and then creating spaces afterwards where you can kind of come down and calm down and find the right way and the right time and the right environment for sleep. And getting good quality sleep has a lot of factors in terms of kind of what you do leading up to when you go to bed and also sort of how, your space is laid out. Like, what do you think about that stuff? What are some of the ways that we can get good sleep?
Yeah, so it's really important. So melatonin is a very um it's like completely known as far as like everybody's heard of melatonin and everybody associates it with sleep, but melatonin is actually something that is really it's really beneficial to the body, fights against a lot of the things that we want it to be fighting against, and promotes a lot of the things that we want it to be promoting. And so that's a whole episode on its own. So I'll leave it at that. But your body produces melatonin in complete darkness. And so, really making sure that you do an audit of your sleep space to ensure that it's the right temperature, it's the right darkness. We want as much darkness as possible. So, we're producing that melatonin. Even, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but even if you have electronics in your room, covering up the lights that are the power lights and those types of things, blackout curtains are really good, especially this time of year. But I'd actually love to kick it back to you because while we're talking about making sure that we have our sleep. Oh, by the way, put your phones on, like turn them off, put them across the room, put them on airplane mode at minimum because we want to make sure that we're not just soaking in the EMFs while we're sleeping. Besides, but I wanna kick it back to you because I mentioned the blackout curtains. But let's talk a little bit about the stress reduction and the just being within the rhythm of nature and living with nature while we're living in the world that we live in. Talk a little bit, Ramsey, about getting up with the light and circadian rhythms.
Well, yeah, I mean, these days we could spend our whole lives like not having a connection to what's happening outdoors. We might not have windows or our windows might be closed or, some of us work remotely, right? So we might be working in a completely different time zone, like on the other side of the world. But the best thing to be able to connect with nature actually is to get sunlight, natural sunlight in our eyes. And I'm not saying look at the sun because that's a great way to cause corneal damage. But I mean, like being outdoors and even looking down, but having your eyes open, you can get the sun in your eyes. And, first, the daylight in the morning, it's a different frequency. It has a lot of that blue light in it. And that'll wake you up. That's a great way to wake up, especially if you have a sunny region. But here in the Pacific Northwest, and we're lucky if we get sun, but even if you get outdoors, that does the thing. And then also just at that sort of end of the day at dusk, the sunlight is a much more kind of a red hint to it. You've got like the what is it, the golden hour, which is perfect for
Yeah.
photography. That light in your eyes will calm you down. But then in terms of like the devices that we mentioned, if you don't turn off like the blue, then your screens that you're looking at, if you're looking at that late at night, it's just kicking your eyes right back with that like morning sun kind of frequencies, and that'll throw you off. So you definitely benefit from getting out. And then getting outdoors is great for exercise. It's great for fresh air. Outdoor air quality in most cases is much better than indoor air quality. Um, and there's a lot of value to getting up and walking around, even if it's just short bursts throughout the day. It gets your blood flowing and keeps things moving in from a digestive perspective. And yeah, so
And
getting up, getting out.
blood sugar regulation
Yes.
too. We don't, it's so crazy because we kind of segment all these different things off in their own parks, but really, when we talk about like circadian rhythm, for instance, you get up in the morning and our bodies are far more intelligent than what our brains are processing. And so we have to remember that, as I mentioned, with like the innate intelligence when it comes to eating foods, and the foods that you crave are likely for, and I'm going to give a caveat on that if you're craving chocolate, I've been told before that that's a very well it's been documenting that perhaps you need some of the components of that. So like perhaps magnesium is something that you actually are craving and need. Or like if you're craving macaroni and cheese, you probably don't actually need the macaroni and cheese, but your body has associated that with protein intake. And so you actually need some proteins and some healthy fats. And it's tough because we've kind of gone off into this, like I mentioned, it's like the chemicals of the world have confused our brains, but there are some things that our bodies are really in tune with still. And if we pour into that and be intentional about honoring that piece of it, like with our circadian rhythm. So when our bodies are just waking up in the morning, those melatonin levels that we've been producing all night, like those levels are coming down and our cortisol levels are going up as we're adventuring into the day and we're waking up and most of the time we don't give our bodies enough time to actually make that adjustment. Instead, it's like the alarm is going, kids have to get out the door, let's go, let's go, let's go. And it's just like, like I hear like the bugle of the military, like that, up and out and go, go, go. And instead, it's like instead of chugging that coffee on your way out because you're not functional without the coffee, it's like give yourself a second. I mean, if you get up 5 minutes earlier and just go outside and look, look at this. It sounds super weird, like crazy, whatever, but for real, like go outside and just experience nature. Allow your body and your brain to wake up, to go from sleeping to transition into being awake.
And take off your shoes and socks and actually like
Yeah.
put your feet in the grass and connect to the earth.
Yes.
But before we start wrapping up this episode, I do want to kind of mention one more kind of big topic, which is the role of connecting with other people and with a higher
Yeah.
power. Because we've been talking a lot about individual stuff, but I think that when we're looking at being joyful, it's really important to it's important to reach out and connect with other people. And I think part of finding that inner joy that lasts is understanding kind of our place in the universe and how we're connected to the people around us and how we're connected with God, and it's not just the people, it's not just our family, it's not just our friends, it's not just the people who think like us. I think it's really important too to reach out to people who think differently from us, who have different perspectives, who don't see the world exactly the way that we do, because ultimately, I think joy and peace comes from understanding truth. And, no one has a complete grasp on truth. Truth is big and truth is complicated and truth is nuanced. And the best way that we can really understand truth is to get as many perspectives as we can, to ask lots of questions and to think it through and to look at, evidence and look at and match that up against what we already know and match that up with our discernment. And that journey of exploration and being open to understanding what's really going on, uh, that leads us to having peace of mind and joy. And then when we're able to honestly express that, that's when, we can lead kind of full lives. And so when I think about this whole question of how do we find joy that lasts instead of happiness that we chase and it's fleeting, I think that's a big part of it. Part of it is learning and understanding what's true and what's real and connecting with all of the people around us.
I like all of that, Ramsey. I'm glad that you brought that up. And there's a whole lot that we could unpack. There'll be a whole episode on its own. But one of the things that we say at the NTA all the time is that we don't want to be right. We want to get it right. And I
Yeah,
think there's a lot to be said for that mindset and approaching life in that way of understanding that everybody has a slightly different vantage point, right? I was a past life paying off student loans debt. I was a 911 operator in Juneau, Alaska. And I will tell you that there can be three different people on scene who witnessed the exact same thing and they each have a different story. And our stories
mhm,
are what make us who we are, but they also can impede our ability to see things from others' perspectives when this is my truth and these are, this is my package of my bio individual life experiences. And so I'm sensitive about that, but love this. And I think that, there's kind of a kumbaya that can be had in all of this and the togetherness of really trying to um, push forward, especially in this time when we have big political things that are happening, big spiritual things that are happening right now. It's really cool. It's a great time to be alive. And there's a lot of hopefulness to be had. And I think seeking out the commonality with each other in that community, we have a lot more in common than we do have differences. And so really, looking at life with excitement and trying to understand things that we don't understand. We don't know what we don't know. And so, it's always being on the lookout to learn something new and have new experiences, and just keep learning. And then whatever it is that you learn that has positively impacted your life, please do share that forward with as many people as you can, because that's how bigger changes happen faster. And so, I really thank you
absolutely.
so much, Ramsey.
Well, new experiences like this one, being on each other's podcasts at the same time. This was a lot of fun. So, Jamie, how can people find you online? How can they learn more? How can they get connected with you?
Yeah, so Nutritional Therapy and Wellness Podcast is the number one place. I'll put some links and then I'll send them to you to put on your side as well in the episode description. And you do the same back. We'll put some links so we can cross promote and do all these wonderful things that we are to do. And so our listeners on this side can learn what's worthwhile, and yours on that side can come on over and learn some things from the perspective of the foundations of health as taught through the Nutritional Therapy Association.
Yes, and you can find the What's Worthwhile podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms, and you can find more at what'sworthwhile.net. And you can find me on social media, places like Instagram and X and LinkedIn, all the good places. So this was fun. We'll have to do this again. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you so much, Ramsey. And thank you for listening today. We look forward to hearing you on both sides, both podcasts, or to seeing you, talking to you, being with you, wherever you're at and listening today. I thank you for being here with us.
Where to go from here? Visit what'sworthwhile.net to learn more about me, Ramsey Zimmerman, and please reach out to me and let me know what you think. I don't want this podcast to be some message in a bottle thrown out to sea. I want to hear back from you. Please send me a message or an email or hit me up on X, LinkedIn, or Instagram. And please leave a rating and review for the What's Worthwhile podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Amazon. Thanks.